Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video and for the latest from the live radar, run for the latest weather warnings. We have got extensive rain warnings issued for northern areas, as we are going to see this northwest southeast divide setting up, and it is going to produce a conveyor belt of moisture and precipitation across those northern areas. We are going to see a lot of rain, and it is going to be pretty heavy at times, persistent over the next 48 hours or so. Now, eventually, that precipitation, along with that warm air across the southeast, is going to clear away, and the colder Arctic air to our northwest is going to win out, and we're all going to be much, much colder through the weekend into the start of next week. Now, it is only late September, so it can't be that cold, but it is going to be a real shock to the system. Temperatures peaking mid-teens at best, and again, that doesn't even factor in the feel-like temperature when those northerly gusts do come in. So it's going to feel really chilly as we head into next week. As we'll see from the longer range charts, this sort of cooler pattern doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. It does look like the rest of September, really, from around Sunday onwards, is going to be below average. It's going to be pretty chilly, if not cold, as we do see northerly and eventually easterly winds starting to push in. So by no means are we going to see bitterly cold easterly winds. It's way too early in the year or in the season to see that. But it is going to be chilly, and it is going to be a real change from what we've had recently. The positive side as the easterly winds is hopefully it does mean it is fairly dry, especially further westwards. Drizzle, thicker cloud and a few showers could appear in the east and the far south, but again, those things will pick up nearer the time. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Now, if you start on live radar, we're starting to see the southeast-northwest split appearing. Precipitation starting to move in for those northern and western areas, but it is going to become much more confined to certain areas over the next 24 hours or so. That cool air really pushing into the north and the warm air really pushing into the south. But still, scattered showers around through this evening, calling this around 7 p.m. So the sun is setting, and if we do look at the temperatures, you can see it's been fairly mild in the east. It's not necessarily been warm today, but if you have been out and about, you might have felt a little bit muggy, a bit humid out there, and that's that very warm air mass starting to push in, and the temperatures are likely to peak tomorrow around 26 degrees or so. Really, really quite pleasant and warm. And you can see where that's coming from, that air right from our south, but it isn't going to last all too long, as we'll see in a few moments' time. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, we've got these widespread rain warnings issued for much of Wales, pretty much all of North England into southern Scotland and eastern Northern Ireland. Now, first, if we look at the warning across eastern Northern Ireland, it goes from midday until 3 a.m. on Sunday. So that's Saturday through to Sunday. So we are looking at some really heavy rain that may lead to flooding and travel disruption. Now, there is likely to be rain on Friday as well, but it's the really heavy stuff is Saturday through to Sunday. And again, we're looking at 20 to 40 millimetres, and you can see it is covering these eastern portions of Northern Ireland, 60 to 80 in a few spots, and this could fall in a matter of a few hours. Even the risk of a few embedded thunderstorms within this as well. And then we've got this other large warning from 9 a.m. on Saturday until 6 a.m. on Sunday for southern Scotland, northern England, and much of Wales. Again, we could see significant disruption with 20 to 40 millimetres widely, 75 to 100 millimetres in a few spots, with much of this falling in the latter hours of the event. As we'll see from the UK in a minute, there does look like a big, really torrential pulse pushing through overnight into Sunday. And again, there could be some gusty winds, thunder, so embedded thunderstorms, before it does slowly start to clear and move southeastwards. Medium impact, very low likelihood. So there is scope for this to even be moved to an amber if we do see that likelihood increase. And then into Sunday, same warnings issued. Now, if you go over to the latest UKV, you can see those showers starting to set up in the northwest, but it's really through Friday we start to see that conveyor belt develop. Now, initially, it doesn't look like much, just some thicker cloud and some on and off rain. It's nothing too crazy, but you can see it doesn't really go anywhere. And then as we head through Friday evening into Saturday, it starts to pep up. The rainfall starts to get a bit heavier, a bit more widespread, and we start to see some more heavy pulses moving through. And then it's really during Saturday into the evening where it becomes really significant. Some of the rain could actually filter into the far southeast. That's holding temperatures down there on Saturday. If we do avoid that, it could still be mid-20s potentially there. But the really heavy stuff arrives overnight Saturday into Sunday, and you could see this big pulse that moves through Saturday afternoon into the evening, where we see torrential precipitation, dark reds there indicating potentially embedded thunderstorms within the flow, for it slowly clears eastwards overnight to Sunday, And then into Sunday afternoon, look at this, a northerly wind, an Arctic air mass flooding in. And you can see this from this sort of more of a drier air mass. Yes, cloud and showers popping up, coming in off that northerly flow, but all coming in from the north, turning much, much colder. And then eventually during Monday and Tuesday, the wind starts to veer to an easterly. And you can see the air mass is pretty cold, a good 4 or 5 degrees below average. And initially could even be 8 or 9 degrees below average for those northern areas, but the air mass does moderate as it gets towards our shores. But hovering around freezing at 850 HPA, and if we look at the dew points, really quite cold as well, down towards low single digits. And you can see initially when the cold air mass arrives, could even get down to freezing. So there is the risk of some isolated frost there Sunday and maybe Monday. Now, if you look at the temperatures this afternoon, you can see 22 or 23 degrees in the east, so feeling pretty humid and muggy out there, even though it was reasonably cloudy. Into Friday, though, look at this, 26 degrees across those eastern areas, really quite pleasant. And as we head into Saturday, 22 in the far east. It could be warmer depending on the shower and rain amounts, but further north and westwards, those temperatures starting to cool down. And for Scotland, single digits in many spots. And then look what happens into Sunday. That cold front sweeps through, potentially a frost across Scotland into Sunday morning. And by Sunday afternoon, we're all struggling mid to low teens. Maybe an isolated 16 or 17, but might not even get that if we see the thicker cloud and rain. So not a huge 20-degree drop-off we were seeing in some of the runs over the past few days, where we went from 26 degrees down to 7 or 8. That had a bit more rain around, whereas this, it's more of a 10-degree temperature drop, so still substantial, just not that 20 or 18-degree temperature drop that we were seeing. Now into Monday, look at that, potentially quite a bit of frost for some northern England, parts of northern England, Scotland, Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, maybe Wales as well, where you see those lighter blues. That's where we could see some isolated frost. Again, it's not huge, but it is late September. And in prior years, we've seen high 20s in these days and these weeks of the year. So it is quite unusual to be seeing this for at least modern years. And you can see again into Monday looking pretty cold. Again, overnight temperatures down close towards freezing, but probably not quite as close as the upper air temperatures do moderate. And again, Tuesday struggling around the mid-teens at best. So turning much, much colder. And again, this doesn't actually factor in the feel-like temperature, which probably would add on or take off, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 degrees, depending on how much that wind picks up. Now, if you look at the latest GFS now, you can see that warm southerly flow pushing in over the next few days. And you can see the northwest-southeast split. You can see it best on the temperature deviation. Big split of almost 20 degrees at 850 HPA. But the cold air wind's out, and you can see we all go into that much fresher air mass for Sunday and Monday. It's with this northerly wind, but the high pressure topples, but doesn't clear away like some runs were showing. All runs are now agreeing it sticks around, holds off the jet stream, and the jet stream stays massively amplified. But for us, we're on the southern side of the jet stream, the more settled side of the jet stream, and we're under higher pressure. So although the amplified jet stream that we've been talking about for the last week or two is still happening, we've just got the lucky end of the draw, and we are under the higher pressure. And eventually, longer term, look at this, pretty brisk easterly winds do develop. Now again, it's late September, early October, so it can't be that cold, but it definitely could be pretty chilly. The potential equivalent temperature shows you what sort of air mass we've got. Is a cold air mass. It's not, remarkable. It's not going to produce anything substantial. But if we look at the surface, temperatures mid-teens at best, and overnight could drop away further. So 16, 17 maybe at best. It's not going to be abysmal. There's going to be sunshine around, which will definitely aid those temperatures, but we're definitely not looking at loads of warm sunshine and humid conditions. It's going to be cold. It's hopefully going to be pretty dry if we put on the precipitation. Yes, a few showers and thicker cloud could push in, but hopefully shouldn't be too bad indeed. So yeah, it doesn't actually look like too bad of a pattern. It's chilly, it's fresh, it feels like we are heading towards late autumn, early winter, really. But I think the biggest thing we'll take from this is it is dry, and hopefully we see some quite substantial sunshine. But yeah, pretty brisk easterly wind coming here from the GFS, and the GEM agrees with this as well. High pressure clearing away to our east, that northerly wind pushing in, looking pretty cold there into next week. And then again, that high pressure topples in initially, it just topples straight over the top of us, and then again we start to see that easterly wind developing. Now the high pressure isn't as dominant over the top of us, so that easterly wind isn't quite as strong And you can see towards day 10, we actually do see the jet stream starting to push in, and it does start to push in warmer, more humid mid-Atlantic air. So there is the prospect that it doesn't last too long, and as the final days of September does break down, like this GM run is showing, and it's all because that little ebb and flow in the jet shifts, and we start to go into more of that westerly, into that lower pressure, that trough that starts to push in. So we'll have to wait and see, but definitely, at least for a period of time, easterly winds pushing in for much of next week. And finally, if we compare to the latest ECMWF, the midnight run, as the midday run hasn't come out yet, northerly winds, as expected, high pressure builds in, and then again, easterly winds. The high pressure is not quite as big, which does mean we can see a little trough develop. So unfortunately, that could allow precipitation to form, and it could mean that although, yes, it's an easterly flow, it's maybe dry in the early days, longer term could allow that low to move in, and it could look a little bit more horrible and unsettled there at day 10. So yes, all round green and an easterly flow, but towards day 10, seeing a little bit of uncertainty building, and it could reintroduce the chances of more precipitation and more varied conditions. Now, to finish by looking at the latest ensembles, the latest GFS, you can see big drop off in temperatures, 15 to maybe even 20 degree temperature drop off at the upper air level over the next 3 or 4 days. Precipitation is quite moderate when that cold front moves through, but after that you can see it dries off a little bit. Still sun runs keeping some precipitation around. This low pressure will never be too far away in this easterly flow, and there always can be quite a bit of convection. It all depends on whether we see little troughs. All we have to do is go back to and think about when we see sort of proper cold easterlies, when we talk about snow potential convection, it's the same mechanism. It's just the air mass in those scenarios are 10 or 15 degrees colder than what it will be. So it's the same sort of process. We are going to see cloud, we are going to see some convection taking off, maybe not quite as extreme, as a lot of that is powered by the temperature contrast. We're not seeing as much of a temperature contrast here, but it's a similar scenario, so definitely convection is possible. Troughs definitely could pep up precipitation, so that's why we're not seeing zero, we are seeing some. Longer term though, the temperatures do return more towards average. Even if we do see an easterly wind, eventually it'll get moderated back towards average. Again, we are still so early on in the autumn that it's kind of impossible to see anything that cold. But the big thing is, as I said, you're looking pretty dry. Dew points though are going to make a tumble from 15, 16 degrees, being pretty humid, down towards 2 or 3 through Monday, Tuesday, returning maybe towards 7 or 8, but much drier, and it will feel much fresher. It'll really help those feel-like temperatures, so it won't feel muggy anymore. It will definitely feel fresh. Early in the mornings, late in the evenings, it will feel pretty cold indeed. And if we do look at the ECMWF midnight, very similar, big drop-off around the 15 to 20 degree mark over the next couple of days. And then again, staying well below average for much of next week, then returning to average for the final days of September and early October with that easterly flow and precipitation a little bit more of an appearance, but similar to the GFS. Not massive amounts of precipitation, but just enough for us to say that we are still going to see quite a few showers around. We'll be lucky to see nothing, but at the same time, these sort of setups do normally dry up a little bit as we do get towards them. But again, it depends on the air masses and depends on whether we see any troughs. So like the ECMWF at day 10, where we see that trough develop to the south, then definitely some of these high precipitation spikes for London could be possible. But if it's more like the GFS or the GM, which, yes, the pressure lowers a little bit longer term, but it remains fairly high, then hopefully we won't see too much. But the big headline is big chopping and changing over the next few days as we see the big amplification in the jet stream really dominating the North Atlantic. And then we kind of set up in one of the high pressure pockets within the sort of southern edge of the jet stream. And fortunately, it looking pretty high and dry with easterly winds. Unfortunately, feeling cold, maybe some showers around, but hopefully it ends that Atlantic onslaught that we have seen return at times over the past couple of weeks. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.